I'm really happy that you could create time to come for this training. Actually, we are really privileged because we are doing this kind of training in a very relaxed atmosphere. We are able to interact more and let's take that chance. Maybe just to mention, this training is a very important training that is currently being done across Africa in countries like Tanzania, DRC, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Cote d'Ivoire. And it's the same kind of training. So you can imagine this kind of opportunity. It's not really to be taken lightly. And so I'm really excited with the attention that we're giving these issues. Now, the other thing I would mention about disability, if you've looked at the programming code that was issued in, I think, 2016, but 2015, it keeps on being reviewed. There's a big emphasis that the Communication Authority of Kenya has on disability-specific programs. As in, every media house needs to have them. It's not like now tokenism. Although I know there are many media houses which don't have this. So whether it's radio or TV, it's part of the menu that should be there. And when they're doing the analysis, the quarterly reports and so on, these are some of the aspects that they look at. And who knows, maybe at one point they might say, now, from this point on, we have penalties if you don't have that. I remember when I was at St. Paul's University and we were running the Light FM radio station, which is a community station, radio station run by students. In the year 2018, I think, yeah, or 2019, we got the broadcasting, the compliance award, just because we are complying with all these rules like doing disability programs and so on. So I think this training is really, really important, and we should view it like that. So today I want to talk about developing story angles for people with disabilities, and my plan is to speak to story angles, what it means, and how we can interpret that in light of creating stories for persons with disabilities. Then I'll also talk about media stereotypes. Stereotypes exist in the society in nearly everything, but we look at specifically what are some of the media stereotypes with persons with disabilities, and then we'll try to explore experimentally a couple of different story angles, and then we'll also look at key issues in disability. In every field of study, we usually have key issues. Like in medicine right now, I'm sure COVID is the key issue, or just pandemics, yeah? So we'll ask, in terms of disabilities, where are we? What should we focus on? And then finally, we look at how to identify a good story angle. Okay, so the first thing we want to interrogate is story angle. And we're saying a story angle is a specific viewpoint or perspective of telling a story. Those of you who recall, perhaps in your writing classes, the very easy way to think about perspective is like you can tell a story from the first person point of view. You can say, I went to the market, I saw this, or you can say, Juma went to the market, Juma saw, that's the third person, and so on. But in media, we're saying it's the approach that you're giving to a story. It's the kind of things you're deciding to make prominent. It's like saying, these are the things I want to highlight. Yeah, so you capture that in your title, you capture that in your in introductory sentences, so that you make that emphasis, and you build your story around that idea that you feel perhaps if I take this angle, many people will be interested to hear about this, or my story will have many clicks. Yeah, so that's what we think about the story angle, and we're saying it holds the attention of the audience. And the same story can be told from different or multiple story angles. So it's you as a writer, or perhaps an editor who gives the story the spin, who decides which story angle to give a story. Now, most of the stories that we tell in the media, unfortunately, they revolve around these particular stereotypes. Like if you're telling a story about disability, maybe you're looking at the pitiable angle or pathetic angle so that you can whip people's emotions. Yeah, and sometimes at the end of that story, you give the M-Pesa number, So you've made people become so emotionally attached to the story until they feel, okay, I want to do something, And then you can also frame persons with disabilities as sinister or evil. And mostly this happens in movies or plays or television drama, where the character perhaps who has a disability is the one who is the villain, is the one who is the bad person, something like that. So that's another way you can frame that. Super creeps, this is very popular, and I think the examples I'll give will be on that, so I can, skip that. Objectives of ridicule. Think about all the memes you're seeing. In fact, right now, when somebody says something that is astonishing or shocking, those are the memes we are using in the WhatsApp groups. So we are continuing to perpetuate this myth of persons with disabilities as objects of ridicule, and even just people with disabilities being incapable of participating fully in life. That's the picture that we're having. Now, let's remember that stereotypes are everywhere in society, not just in disability. Like last week, I was I think it's this week. Yeah, this week, I was attending an international conference which involved the clergy from around 9 countries from Africa. So there's this clergy from Uganda who gave us a very interesting story. So actually he said, there's this stereotype among Kenyans that Ugandan women are very submissive. What else? I know, Irene, you've been in Uganda. What else do we say about Ugandan women? And so Kenyan men usually fantasize about having, maybe marrying someone from Uganda because,
They say they're submissive, respectable, they take good care of their men.
Yes, so there's that stereotype. But there's this priest from Uganda who says, it's a common story in Uganda that the king wanted some men whom he could go to war with. So he called all the men to his palace and said, and these were his trusted men. He said, I only want very strong men who are not influenced by their wives. So if you are here in this room and you listen to your wife, please get out through that other door. And to his surprise, all the men left except one man. So akauliza mwenye amebakia, sasa wewe, does it mean you don't listen to your wife? Akasema hapana, my wife told me I should not be following the crowd. So so we have all these stereotypes, and in fact one other thing that might interest us is this preacher who said, if you think about the Bible, we usually imagine that Eve was younger than Adam, something like that. Or even when photos of Eve and Adam are drawn, they show Adam as a big man, Eve as a small man, and so on. And they're saying those are just stereotypes, because if someone says if you take your rib, how old will your rib be younger than you? If they took the rib and that's the rib they used to create Eve, if you take your tooth, it will be the same age as you, something like that. So anyway, so there's so many stereotypes in society, but we are saying for persons with disability, it's really, really harmful, because there are people who need our attention in society. Now, to return to this, just to point out 2 issues, the super creep or super cripple and pitiable or pathetic as some of the stereotypes. And here we're saying, and I think we had this argument last time, because someone was saying, if someone has a disability, but they have been able to overcome the disability and achieved success in life, that is just what it is. That's the reality. But we want to say that, this view looks at persons with disabilities as people who have triumphed over their disability. So it seems like a positive stereotype, but it shows that disability is something to overcome. And remember what we talked about, the models of disability, the medical model. Medical model wants to fix a person who has disability. So it's the same idea. When we frame our stories with this angle, it's like we're saying, everyone needs to overcome their disability and become famous and become like, is it Vujik, and so on. So they're shown as inspiration just because of their disability and nothing else. And then on the flip side, if you think about persons with disabilities as people who are pathetic or pitiable, you write your story in a very sad and emotive way. And we're saying, yes, it is true, living with disabilities is not easy. It is difficult. But then, that should not be the story. That should not be the only story that is told. Because really, it's not the only story. And let's interrogate this a bit further. If you look at this lady, super lady, Jen Denga, I mean, like she oozes with personality. She's very positive. She's an achiever, and so on. But she has a disability, physical disability, and she plays tennis. I'm sure maybe you've heard of her, or maybe you've never heard of her. But she's earned Kenya more medals than any other athlete. And in fact, she was a 2018 Sawyer award winner. I think we mentioned that yesterday. So this was a story about her. And how the Star captured this was able differently, tennis, superstar wonder. And underline the words superstar. And you think about all the stereotypes you're thinking about yesterday when it's talking about language, language and terminologies. And how the stories began in the newspaper, and I think I'll just read. So they begin by saying, when polio paralyzed her left leg at the age of 5, Jen Denga's life changed dramatically. With 12 operations failing to help, stigma and trauma became part of her life. Just the same way you're saying she was living with, when you say living with disability, so Jen Denga was living with, stigma and trauma and so on. Now, if you look at that introduction and even the title, what are some of the words that if you are writing this story today, you would not use? Or which words point to some of these stereotypes that we're talking about? Stereotypes like pitiable, sinister, super creeps, objectives, ridicule, etc. So if you look at that, which word would you pick out? Or which word sticks out like a sore thumb for you? Let's think about words like, paralyzed. Okay, yes, Dorothy? There's a mic there.
I think I can change the word. Her life changed dramatically.
Yes, Mike, the word drama. Like you're pushing the agenda of drama, yes?
And stigma and trauma makes people show, brings the pitiable part. So me, I'll remove it.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comment?